hustlers, road players, tournament champions. Hear the stories, get their advice, learn about their lives. Our host, Joey Ryan, brings you an inside look at the professional pool player. You're listening to the Pool Player Podcast, brought to you by Pool Scene 365.
Welcome to the Pool Player Podcast, brought to you by Pool Scene 365. I'm your host, Joey Ryan. If you're enjoying this content, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be updated with each new episode. Today, we have a great episode for you. We have a champion from the era of champions. He was an accomplished tournament player and a seasoned road hustler. Okay, some of his accomplishments include ESPN World Open Champion, 1996 Pool and Billiard Magazine Player of the Year, Billiards Digest Top Money Player of the Century, along with Efren Reyes and Earl Strickland. He spent 7 years in the world top 10 rankings. He's former national high school champion and World Series of Tavern Pool champion at just the age of 21. He's also produced and directed 6 instructional DVDs, a documentary, numerous YouTube videos, and currently you can catch him on Facebook telling stories of his travels on the road and hustling. Without further ado, I would like to introduce CJ Wiley. How's it going, CJ?
Good, Joey. How you doing today?
Oh, man, I'm great. I'm just so excited to learn more about you. So can you get started just telling us, how'd you get started in pool?
Well, I come from a small town in northern Missouri, 629 people, and I was in first grade, and some of the kids were talking about playing pool at the little pool room downtown. And so I agreed to go down with them, and I remember going into this place, and, you know, the smell of smoke and mixed with, they had like spittoons, and the old men were playing cards in the back, and we had 3 9-foot pool tables. First one was red, the next one was green, and the next one was blue, you know. So, but they were, I think, Brunswick anniversaries or centennials. They had the chrome on them, but we had to, you know, a lot of players you'll see has that stick right on their chin when they're playing. And not in all cases, but a lot of times it's because they started like I did at age 7. So they can't hardly reach the table. And then when they grow up, they just keep that chin placement. We stood on Pepsi crates. The owner of the pool room had these big wooden Pepsi bottle crates, and we would move them around and stand on these crates. So I never did develop that habit. I say that because a lot of people think that you're supposed to do that. But a lot of it's because a lot of the champions started when they were really young. So if you don't have your cue on your chin, don't feel like that's a disadvantage. As a matter of fact, I think in a lot of cases it might be a little bit better. But that's the first time I ever played, and I beat the guy as a kid that I was with like 3 games in a row, which he wasn't delighted about. But I just had a knack for the game. And by the time I was 9, I'd ran my first rack. By the time I was 11, I ran 2 racks in a row playing 8-ball. And we played rotation and 8-ball. And then when I was 12 was the first time I broke and ran all 15 balls in rotation, just to give you an idea. And I won my first regional tournament at 12, and then started going on the road when I was 15. I borrowed a friend's car when I was not quite old enough to drive. His only words to me were, "You wreck, you pay." and a thriving snow cone business at the time, so he knew I had the money to pay for the car, but he would loan it to me, and I'd drive to Columbia, Missouri, which was about 80 more miles from where he was, and I'd play all weekend and then drive back. And at the age of 15, I remember being in a snowstorm. I mean, you know, when it's snowing so hard you can't hardly see.
Yeah.
I'm 15 years old. I'm driving back, and I remember I finally get back to where, you know, he's at, and his house is behind this little shopping center. And I went into the shopping center. I mean, it's just white everywhere. And I was doing donuts. There was no friction, you know what I mean? But I just did some donuts, and I mean, it was a wow, you know, and then I went on to his house. So I had a lot of adventure in me from a young age. I think it's kind of in my blood to be on the road and travel. And I picked the perfect, occupation to be able to do that back then. Road players were all over the country, a lot of gambling, and And so that's where I get my adventures on the road. I've got over 30 videos produced now of me driving in the car telling these stories, and then I've probably got another 20 or 30 I could do. I'm in the process of putting together like a very consistent show where I run a rack every day. And
Yeah.
my saying is the game is the teacher. So I just want to live on video play a game and just see what it brings up, whether it's stories that I saw this shot or a similar one on the road somewhere, or the instructional part where I show a certain type shot and then show everybody and tell them as I play what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, and how they can do it too.
Yeah. Was there a moment that you felt like you arrived? So as you were, you started early by 9 years old, 12 years old, you're running racks, you're playing great. But was there like a tournament or an event where, you did really well and you said, hey, I can make a living out of this. This is something I could do really well. I could be one of the best in the world.
Yeah, well, I was pretty athletic when I was so tennis was my favorite game. And if you notice, I hold my cue a little bit unusual, and it's really a tennis grip because I played tennis and golf and pool all at the same time when I was young. And I beat some nationally ranked tennis players, and so I played a lot of tournaments and just was obsessed. Anything that I focus on, I become almost obsessed with it. And I was playing 8 hours a day in a town that didn't even have a tennis court. So I'm hitting against the wall. Eventually, my mother bought me one of those ball machines, if you've ever seen,
Yeah.
shoots them out. And my dad made me a dirt court, and I used to spend like hours and hours and hours out there. And then I would play pool in the winter. Of course, summer never was really a big pool season where I come from. Everybody was out fishing and hunting and doing all that kind of stuff. And then once winter started hitting, everybody went inside and started to play. But I was in Kirksville, Missouri, one night at a roller rink. There was a bowling alley, had pool tables, named Leisure World. And these guys came up to me, these kids, I say guys, but they're 16, 17 years old, came up and said, hey, there's a guy from Columbia, Missouri here that's wanting to play for money. And I was like, really? Because nobody really wanted to play me for money. I mean, I did gamble there, but I went up to the guy and we agreed to play 9-ball for 20 a game. Well, no, I'm sorry. We first played 8-ball. I told him I didn't play 9-ball. I'd seen it on TV on Wide World of Sports, but I'd never played 9-ball. But I had played rotation, which is the same game.
Yeah.
Really. So we played 8-ball for 20 a game, and I ended up beating him like 3 games in a row. Then he wanted to play 9-ball, and I told him I didn't play, and he thought I was hustling him. Here, I'm just a 15-year-old kid. So we agreed to play 9-ball because it was like rotation. I broke and ran the rack. And he quit, and his face was red. He said, I knew you were hustling me.
Jeez.
And so when he calmed down, we started talking. He says, something, if you want to make some money, come to Columbia and I'll show you who to play. And he said, we'll split the money that we make. And I said, well, that's a great idea. So for some reason, I just drove to Columbia without contacting him. I can't remember if I lost his number or whatever it was. And I got there, and after a little bit of detective work at the pool room, found out he was in Colorado. So now I had no steerman. So this guy that's one of the better players in Columbia said he'd play me for 20 a game. And so we played, and I ended up beating him out like $80. He quit, and he said, I can't beat you. I need some weight. And I said, weight? I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, yeah, weight. He said, you know what weight is. He says, you don't hustle me, I said, I really don't. What is it? He said, it's a handicap. He said, you play better than me, so you're supposed to give me a handicap. And I said, okay, what's a good handicap? And he said, give me the 7, 8, 9. So playing 9-ball, I went on the 7-ball, the 8-ball, and the 9-ball, and you just went on the 9. I thought for a minute, I was like, that sounds fair. Really, it wasn't, because he's a really good player.
Right.
But I held him at bay for like 4 or 5 hours, where it was going back and forth and back and forth. I think I was even up on him. And all of a sudden, he started making it on the break and getting combinations, and boom, he beat me like 6, 7 games in a row. And I think I lost back his $80 and quit. And then that was when these guys that had seen a lot, St. Louis had come in from St. Louis, and, they knew about pool players. And that's when they started to tell me, you have a talent that you could be a pro if you wanted to. And I was like, wow, I love the game, but I really hadn't thought about making money. Like I said, I sold snow cones, and by the time I was 16, I had 22,000 saved up in the bank. So I had a pretty lucrative little thing going on there.
Yeah.
So I really didn't need to play pool for money, other than just a way to keep score, a way to put pressure on me. And that's what gambling is. I recommend it to everybody, but I don't recommend everybody gamble for any kind of significant amount. I think it's good to play I know old men that play for $1 a game every day, and they play like they're playing for the world championships.
Yeah.
I think you just need a way to keep score that puts a little pressure on you. So that's when I really started to understand that I may have a unusual talent, and started to go from Columbia, like I said, on the weekends, where I started going to St. Louis and some of these Kansas City, and started to branch out, meet other people that were road players, and they took me under their wing. So right during that time is when I knew that I may have a destiny.
And you were what age at that time?
15.
15.
And it was really 16 when I started going to St. Louis.
Okay.
I took a tennis player, Carlos Norton from Mazatlan, Mexico. He was their number one player, down to play in a tennis tournament. And while he was playing tennis, I was going to play pool. So we went into this pool room, Afton Billiards, the OK Corral was the name of it. And there was a guy that wanted to gamble with me, but he wanted to play for $100 a set. And I really didn't have that much money. I had like 200, just enough for expenses and everything. So I went down to another pool room and hawked I had a Josh cue that I really didn't use, but it had some value. So I hawked it for $300 with the understanding that I could give him $320 if I got it back that night. Took the money back down to Afton, the OK Corral, played the guy, beat him out $600, and then took the cue back, gave him the $320. Now I end up, I'm like $550 ahead or something, and I felt like that was, like I was Bill Gates or something in the pool world at that time, and went on a shopping spree. And but that, that was how I cut my teeth, is gambling at a young age, going to these big cities and just playing whoever, wanted to play.
Yeah. So when you were at the top of your game, you played against all the greats, and the game, you catch it on television from time to time on ESPN. And, what do you think the difference is? Like, what's the biggest difference between pool today and pool back when you were in your prime?
We were on ESPN, between 96 and 99, I was the liaison between the professional players and ESPN, and started an organization, the Professional Cue Sports Association. There's a big, long story. That's where Earl Strickland won the $1 million and for running 11 racks in a row. And there was controversy and a legal suit. And I made a documentary about it that's on my website.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that in a little bit.
Yeah, that was an incredible. They said a statistician professor from SMU said that the odds were 7.8 million to 1. So he did it on the first day. It's never been done before or after. It was just one of those. They said that I was more likely to get struck by lightning twice than have that happen on the first day. So I'm pretty familiar with that life can dish out some pretty challenging situations, and being a gambler, I try to play the odds, but I've also seen where things like that happen, and there's nothing you can do about it. So
yeah. So in terms of the game today, with the players that you see out there, and how they treat the game and prepare, especially the Europeans, I think it's a pretty big difference back when you guys were playing and at the top of your game. What are your thoughts on that?
I think overall, there's a lot more great players, because I think they have learned from players, of my generation, Mike Siegels, Buddy Halls, Nick Barners, Alan Hopkins, and Mizrak, and they had the added benefit of like YouTube, where they can see when I was growing up, the only thing I could see pool is on Wide World of Sports, Minnesota Fats and Willie Mosconi, or there was older players playing, but that was few and far between. If I would have had access at the age, that I speak of, like 12 when I started playing tournaments, if I could have watched these players, I know it would have helped me a lot. I think I would have had a more seasoned game, maybe even earlier. But that's the big deal. To go back, I didn't really answer your question about then and now. ESPN is the key. Like, if you're not on TV these days, you might as well not exist.
Yeah.
And that's just how people have been programmed. They look everything on the news most people think is true, and everything that, and I have my doubts about it because, on TV, people are reading from scripts, and they're, I feel like I'm in a movie a lot of times these days.
Yeah.
But I've been in those TV productions where they're telling us how to act and what to do. And like the Mosconi Cup, I was the captain and player in '96, and then captain in 2012. And they encourage us to be really emotional and show excitement and everything, which is great for TV.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody thinks that's how we naturally would be, that's another story.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, pool players are pretty quiet, and they really, you can see the intensity on their face that it's a high concentration game. So the overall exposure back when I was doing the ESPN events, we were getting an average of 1 million people per episode. It didn't matter what time it was on, just because the core of that was just ESPN fans, that they're sports fans that were going to watch whatever was on TV, whether they paid close attention or not. 1 million people, let's say, per week seeing the game created such a feeding frenzy for the pool rooms, because out of those 1 million, it's not unlikely for 100 of them or 200 of them go, I'd like to try that pool game, and I'd like to get a new pool cue and visit this place down the street I've always seen but never went in.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have that now. The YouTube is great in many ways, but you're really not going to get, Joe, normal guy watching pool on YouTube unless he just purely stumbles on it. And then the production value generally isn't like ESPN. So we have an issue there, and because we don't really have like new faces coming into the game on a weekly basis like we did back then. And that, if it's ever going to be really big again, it has to be TV oriented with the YouTube assisting it, and you could do something every day on YouTube feeding into a once a week show on ESPN or another major TV. Now, it doesn't have to be ESPN, but I think you need the same time, same day type situation where people know it's coming up. They can look forward to it, and you build a viewing audience that way, just like all other sports have done. It's just they're so big now, a lot of people don't remember how they got their start. Yeah. Like the golfers used to sleep in their cars and go tournament to tournament, and much like the pool hustlers, it's hard to fathom that when you see them playing now and they're winning $3 or $4 million and last place is 700,000.
Yep.
So
I really think you hit the nail on the head, because how do we get pool to appeal to the masses, and not just like with this podcast, pool players are going to watch it, right? But average people probably won't watch it. And how do we get even the two best players in the world playing each other? If it's streamed on online and not on television, you're right, people aren't going to watch it. And I started commentating matches recently, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it. And I had my wife tune in and watch one of the matches that I commentated. And when I got home, she said, "You did an amazing job. I didn't understand a thing you were talking about, but I think it went great." And I think that's part of the problem, right? We're like, "Oh yeah, he's going to swing 2 rails and he's going to hit this ball, and they don't hit the 6 ball." She's like, "I don't even know what color the 6 ball is." So maybe spell it out for people who don't watch the game. And I think because we've been kind of, put in this corner where only pool players now watch pool, we have to start thinking differently about it, so hopefully that's something that, the folks that are out there doing the big streaming and the big productions, they start thinking about it a little different. Like, how do we attract people who don't normally play pool
Yeah.
to pool? And, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
I have some pretty good ideas of that, because you have to identify what's popular in other sports and model that somehow. And I've done that. And when I took and really wrote down the strengths and weaknesses of pool and compared it, it was pretty obvious that we had a lot of weaknesses, and one of the things that is always popular is banter between the players. But it needs to be appropriate, and it needs to be in a situation where it's consistent. Because like Minnesota Fats, for instance, when he played Willie Mosconi, they had the #1 sports show on ABC Wide World of Sports. Out of all of them, they were #1. Well, it wasn't because of pool. It was because Minnesota Fats had that gift to gab and told the stories. And Willie Mosconi, I think, legitimately hated him.
Yeah,
And so
like
Willie wasn't a great actor, but you could tell he didn't like Minnesota Fats. And then that made it funny because he really didn't have to act. He was just, kind of the sparring partner that he had both on the pool table and off. And so it created a dynamic there. So one of the things that I covered, what I did was I identified on paper all of these strengths and weaknesses and then put it into what would be like a balance sheet, identifying assets and liabilities. I wanted all assets for the game. So I set out to accomplish that. So I went line by line by line by line, and using the experience I've had playing other games through the years and different rules, I was able to finally get everything on the positive side. So the whole game was assets. And then to seal the game, I needed a hook. I needed something that was irresistible to the human mind. And I came up with something to do that. And that is a dare. Like if you and I were in a restaurant or pool room or whatever, and we're talking, about something, even if it was pretty serious, if two guys over there said, well, I'll dare you to blah, 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 we would stop what we're doing. And so would everybody else to hear what the dare was, because we cannot resist a dare. So I created this whole scenario of pool that revolves around a game that we all can play. I say it takes 10 minutes to learn, a lifetime to master. And I could write a book about the strategy of this game, even though it looks simple because of the rules, because of how I created the game through the formula. It brings up a situation every single game that showcases the greatest assets of pool as far as the entertainment value. And that is the shot making, the battle between the two players for the first shot, and what you call two-way shots, or shots that have an offensive and defensive component combined. So like when you were talking about being the commentator, you're really limited there. He's going to do this. He's going to go 2 rails on this ball and do that. You don't have much to work with. So when people talk about the commentators not being as good as other sports or something, it's not them as much as they don't have much material.
Yeah.
And what I've done is created something where every single game you start out with a shot that has an offensive and defensive component. You have to make the shot. And then if you don't make it, there's consequences, of course, but not as severe as in the game we play now where it's ball in hand. Like no other game are they going to get. That'd be like playing basketball and they decide instead of shooting free throws, you just dunk the ball for your extra point. It'd just take a lot out of it. Yeah. And that ball in hand for us is like a dunk shot. Yeah. It's not, we're never going to miss it. Plus it's going to put us in a situation to run a rack that's pretty easy. And if you're not a big pool fan out there, you're going to start looking at it like, well, this isn't exciting. It's like a bunch of golfers making 2-foot putts all day. Once a champion player is in line, they're probably going to run the rack and they're going to probably make it look easy. And making things look easy isn't exciting. So that's where I took a proactive, and I made a 45-minute video about this 3 years ago. So I've been working on getting this in the right place at the right time with the right people for 3 years. And I've come close a couple times, and just something happens and it just doesn't quite pan out. But I've got the blueprint. I just am waiting to, and I'll tell you what, the time is getting better and better now, because so many people are now in their homes a lot more, and they're watching YouTube a lot more. And it looks like indoor games like pool in a controlled environment are, I never thought I'd say it, but healthier than other sports.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who would ever thought pool's always associated with smoking and drinking and other type stuff. But we have a controlled environment. We just need to fill that controlled environment with something that's exciting and interesting and entertaining to people that don't even play pool. And that's what I'm on to right now, and look forward to being able to see it come to fruition, because I've got a place now that looks like it's going to be the home base for it. So, we'll see.
Well, that sounds great. And anything I can do to help, get the word out, I'd love to do. Looking back over your incredible playing career and now as an instructor and someone who promotes pool, what are you most proud of over the years?
Most proud of. I think that I found a way to get out of a town of 629 people with a pool cue, but there's so much that went into that. I think I don't know if I'd say proud. I have mixed emotions about being proud, but I'm happy that I kept up my physical well-being. And, for 24 years, I was a martial arts student and teacher, and reached second-degree black belt in actually 8 different styles, including 18 weapons. And all that pain that I went through when everybody else is taking it easy is really paying off now. So I think one of the things I'm most happy with myself about is, even though I went through pool and what it takes to become one of the best players, it didn't make me unhealthy like it has a lot of players. Buddy Hall told me one time, he said, CJ, if I knew I was going to live this old, I would have taken better care of myself. And boy, I remembered that. And I was like, it's worth giving up an hour a day of a little discomfort or pain or whatever it ends up being to maintain that wellness of mind, body, and spirit. So I, my answer is not going to be because I won the ESPN World Championships or what I've done in pool like itself. I'm just happy that I got through it and didn't have to give up any integrity or anything like that to do it, and still maintain good health. And I can be a good example, I think, to other players that, especially younger players, that maybe if I was really overweight and didn't represent, they may not pay attention to me, but I think I see that that's an advantage, that they like that pool players are athletes.
Do you have any regrets?
Regrets? Yeah, I have one regret. I got where I was working with Hank Haney, who is in Dallas, and he became a friend of mine, and we got really close there for a while. And he was teaching me, he's a golf instructor, and how he really got his claim to fame was when he started coaching Tiger Woods. So he was working with Tiger out of the public eye, and he was going to fly from Dallas down to Orlando to work with him for the weekend. And I was invited, and some things happened, and it was, I had a girlfriend that was not happy about me going down there by myself. And one thing led to another, and I had the pressures of some business, whatever it is. I said no. And I didn't get a chance to go down there to work with Tiger, watch him work with Tiger, in person. And then the next time we played golf together, we played like 54 holes. And during that round, I said, Hank, I'd really like to go with you to watch Tiger hit balls in real life. I said, I just want to see their trajectory and just see what it's like to be there. And he said, CJ, I can't do it now. He said he is guarded way too much. And he says, I can't like do a favor like, hey, Tiger, can I have my buddy pool player come over? He says, I can't. But one thing that kind of redeemed it for me is he wrote a book called The Big Miss about Tiger. And I'd given him a kind of a psychological thing during our relationship that he ended up telling Tiger, and Tiger used it and he put it in the book, which I think is really cool. So my biggest regret also led to one of the biggest accolades of being in the book about Tiger Woods. And just to make it real short, what I told Hank, he asked me, when did you know you were a champion? And I said, Hank, when I knew I was a champion is when I stopped differentiating between hard and easy shots and treated them all just like shots. Because I said, what happens is you'll make those hard shots and inside you'll get, a positive feeling. And then a lot of people jump up the next shot and miss an easy one.
Yeah, you're right.
And it's a common thing among players. I know you've experienced this, we all have. But if you're going to play at a real championship level, you've got to keep really, having something that goes up is as bad as something that goes down. So it's just as bad to rejoice about making a hard shot as it is to get on yourself for not making it. So, that's a mixed answer there, but my biggest regret ended up being one of the greatest things that really happened. So
when
you never know about life.
When you said that, CJ, not to be corny, but I kind of got chills because, that's so profound. They stopped being hard shots or easy shots and they just became shots, and I think back, you're absolutely right. I'm a decent amateur player. And, there's so many times where if you make a hard shot or something you've classified as a hard shot in your mind, then you feel extra pressure. Like, I have to get out here because I can't waste this shot that I just made. I just made a 2-rail kick. If I don't get out here, I'm an idiot. And sure enough, you dog it and you don't get out, so.
Judging yourself is a really good thing to get away from, because like you said, once you categorize that shot as easy or hard, it throws off your mental state. I've always said that I try to keep my mind still. Like if I was looking into a bucket of water, I want my mind to be such as the water that I can see my clear reflection, and any thoughts are like ripples in that water that blurs my perception. So in my mind, I'm trying to keep it like water to where it's still, and then you perform at a much higher level in that state. They call it like the zone. There's several really good books. Zen and the Art of Archery is the one that I recommend to everybody. Even though it's about archery, it's a really good book about pool and how to be connected to the game. And really, I say that there reaches a point where I go from playing the game to the game playing through me. And that's the self-expression that really has always developed and maintained the love for the game, is a way to express myself, show people on the outside what's going on in the inside. And I think musicians, artists, and I'm sure you can relate in everybody can relate,
Yeah.
The street sweeper should be doing it in a way that expresses himself. You know what I mean? Because you never know, he's liable to be the next millionaire miracle story, because it's all about attitude in that respect.
So you did a documentary about Earl running 11 racks in a row for $1 million. And for people who aren't familiar with that story, would you mind kind of sharing that, like just set the stage for what happened and, really what your documentary focused on?
Yeah. Well, we were trying to get exposure and excitement for the game. And again, I was using the same game that I wasn't, like I said before, trying to change the game, just put an excitement element in it. So we came up with this $1 million challenge tour, where it's insured by a prize identification company, like a hole-in-one contest would be, or a half-shot basketball. They insure these, and it's a group called Lloyd's is where it originates, and you've heard of Lloyd's of London.
Mm-hmm.
A Lloyd is a group of risk takers. So the Lloyds of London are a group of risk takers that really insure things all over the world. So when I got the deal in Dallas, they had sold it up the chain to the Lloyds of London. So we developed this. If you ran 8 racks in a row, you got 50,000. 9 racks in a row playing 9-ball, you got 100,000. And if you ran 10 racks in a row, you got $1 million, paid 50,000 a year for 20 years. So it was like a lottery. You know, a lot of people think they win, all the $1 million. If they want all that money up front, they end up getting about 60%.
Yeah.
At that time, it was 63%. So $1 million was 630,000 if you took a lump sum. So we had the first event in Dallas, the Dallas $1 Million Challenge. And lo and behold, the first day, the second match that he played, Earl Strickland got up and he ran 5 racks in a row. And at that point, we started to have to videotape it. So they came and got me, and I came in, and Earl also had to let Jay Helford rack the balls, who was the tournament director, because we were racking our own balls.
Yeah.
Well, he fought him. He was in such a zone that he wouldn't let him rack. So he broke and ran the 6th rack. And then that was when I was getting the camera in place, because then Jay started racking, and he ran 4 more racks for the 10. And everybody, he actually jumped up, came down and broke his cue stick by accident. And he hugged a guy that I know he doesn't particularly like. So it was funny. I mean, Max Everly said he was there and said it was the most excitement he'd ever felt in the game of pool, period. And it had to be, because we had like over 200 people in there, and it was all attention on what Earl was doing. So then he got up and ran the 11th rack. And going back, see, if he hadn't ran that 11th rack, he would have ended up getting the 100,000 instead of the $1 million. So he got up and didn't know it, but ran the additional one. That's what makes it even more of a miracle. I mean, it's a miracle he ran 10 racks, because nobody's ever done it before or after in a professional tournament.
Yeah.
And then he ran that additional rack.
So was the deal that he had to run 11 or he had to run 10?
No, he had to run 10, but 5 of them had to be on video.
Oh, okay.
So he would have just had 4. So there had to be proof.
And this was back before everybody had a cell phone, could pull out and just start recording.
Yeah, we had to have a handheld camera that I had in the office. So they came in and said, Earl's on 5, or Earl's on, maybe they said 4. Anyway, we wasn't prepared for that. So we rushed around and get the camera and everything. And my wife at the time went out there and actually ran the camera. And we have the last, like the first one doesn't, we got it counted, but really we've got the last 4 racks on our documentary at masteringpocketbilliards.com. That's where I got a website that has all my instructional information. But anyway, there was some things that happened legally, and they tried to get out of it, which they do typically, like the half-court basketball shot. If they find out you played a 3-on-3 basketball tournament in Indianapolis when you were 18 years old and made $50, you're disqualified, because you can't, in some of these, propositions, there's some guidelines there that are pretty strict. So a lot of times they'll stall you, go try to find something like that and bring it back, but they weren't able to do that. So our closing day, where we made the deal, there was 17 attorneys on their side, and we had 3. There was so many people. It's early in the morning. There was a huge conference table, surrounded by all these chairs. I went out to get some coffee and came back, and I couldn't even get a chair. It was completely packed with attorneys, and then the guy that was the mediator. So we ended up settling. They ended up spending more money than what they would have. They would have just paid it off.
Yeah.
But then there's legal fees. But Earl got his money, and I've got it in an interview where he says that he did have some legal fees on his end that he had to take care of. And when he did it, the moment he did it, I had a meeting with some attorneys on the fly and told them that I was going to give him the first 50,000 myself, so that then, as they said, we could have a joint lawsuit and both go after him, because I was damaged because I gave him the first 50,000 and told him that I would give him the other payment every year, which I wasn't looking forward to at all,
Yeah.
And then, but I did give him that 50,000. If anybody says that was a wink, wink deal, they're absolutely wrong. And so I gave him the 50,000, created the damages. 2.5 years later, we made the settlement, got the money, but we lost all of the the positive elements of him doing that, and all the recognition and publicity that we got, because then we had to say something was wrong, and then the rumors went everywhere. Oh, CJ it was a con. He didn't really have it. And I was bound by a confidentiality agreement. I couldn't talk. I had like a gag order on me. Yeah. So I can't defend myself and listen to all these people talk about what I was, I gave him $50,000, and I have to listen to everybody talk about that I'm actually a flim flam man on the deal. And that was kind of hard. That was actually really hard.
Imagine if he didn't do that, right? Imagine if that went on for a year or 2 years or 3 years, what it could have meant for the game. I mean, I can't blame a pool player for trying their best and breaking and running 11 racks. I mean, you got to do that. But if it kind of went as planned, which I think as planned would have been, hey, somebody might never do this, or it might be
but don't get there.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting.
No, it would have, the momentum would have built up if he would have ran 7 and not made one in the break or something, and it was over. I can't imagine what would have happened in the second tournament, because everything would have been absolutely ironclad on the second one. A lot of the reason that they were able to fight a legal battle is because it was the first tournament, and we didn't suspect that to happen. Again, it's like going outside and expect to get hit by lightning. I mean, it's just that would be silly. Yeah. So I didn't have, I do accept responsibility. There was one thing that I had to sign that I hadn't signed, but in the state of Texas, if you bind an insurance agreement, it's binding. Like if you get a Lamborghini and call your insurance company and say, hey, I got this Lamborghini, here's the information on it, you're secured there. You don't have to sign anything. In Texas anyway. It's an oral agreement and it's binding. So that's what ended up winning the lawsuit, is we had an oral agreement, so verbal agreement.
So CJ, I have this segment of the program where I call it Speed Pool, and I give a name of a player, and you have to give me the first word that comes to your mind, and you got about 5 seconds to do it. And you can't give compound words or phrases. I'm just going to give you a name and you come back with a word. Sound good?
Yeah.
Keith McCready.
Earthquake.
Johnny Archer.
Scorpion.
Oh, you're going to do all their nicknames.
Oh, I guess so. Yeah. Okay. I see where you're going. Boy, you're catching me off guard here. Okay, go ahead.
Earl Strickland.
Aggressiveness.
Efren Reyes.
I wanted to say magician, because that's creativity.
Buddy Hall.
Not rifleman. Perfectionist.
Okay. That's 5. You're off the hook. I'll just give you 5 today. But did you play much
you
with
those?
Do
an ink blot test on me or something where I have to see things in the clouds and
the Rorschach test? No.
Evaluation.
In terms of those names that I just named, though, did you have a lot of interaction with those guys?
Oh yeah. Buddy Hall and I used to practice when I was a teenager, and he actually did the commentator. He was one of the commentators with Billy Young Cardone and Dave Bowman when I played Steve Mizrak in Reno, which is kind of that's when I first came on the scene in the United States, and that was the best-selling video of the year on AccuStats, is what they told me. So Buddy and I were pretty close, and he'd shared some things with me that I still teach to this day. And Johnny Archer, I played him several times for money before I became a tournament player, and so we've we've had a lot of competitive battles. And plus, when I was the Moscone Cup captain in 2012, Johnny and I really talked a lot back then and strategized on how to win that cup. And it was 9-9 the last day, and just anything could have happened. So we got about as close as you can get. Who else did you mention there?
Efren Reyes.
McCready traveled with several players that I know on the road, Weldon Rogers being one of them. And he was just a phenomenon, especially when he was really young, 16, 17 years old. He was beating everybody in California. And I got to see him the first time when I was 16 at a bar table tournament in Clinton, Iowa, that had just like everybody there, all the champions. But Keith had a shirt on that on the back said, "The world has the last two." So he was offering everybody in the world the last two at that time.
Wow.
So we played a gambling match one time, and I'll just tell you how it went. Is Keith played perfect. He broke and ran out, and he broke, didn't get out. I ran out. We were playing 8 ahead for 3,000, and he didn't shoot again. So when it was over, he came up to me and he just shrugged his shoulders. He's real funny, and shook, fist bumped me and said, "I can't complain. I played perfect and lost. Good shooting," and that was about it. So.
Yeah,
But I did that. I tell people out of self-defense because see, if I didn't do that to him, he was very capable of doing that to me. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying that at all, that I was better than Keith. I just was that particular moment. And for the most part, if he hadn't had me so, it's like in a real gunfight. If you're up against somebody that's super good, you got to come with it. And if you don't, he's probably going to shoot you. So,
yeah.
But
CJ,
I love Keith. Keith's, Color of Money, obviously Grady Seasons, and he did the wave that I enjoyed back in 1986 after The Color of Money came out was huge because everybody was playing pool, and the yuppies were all in the pool spinning their sticks and trying to act like Tom Cruise and really, I think pool was probably the most popular that I've seen. Probably in 87, 88, all the way up to about 91 is when it really started to taper off and lose the momentum. And we didn't have anything on TV to take its place. See, if pool was like some of these other sports and had that type of money behind it and minds, they would have had a Color of Money pool show, I would think, every week and make it to where there's some playing elements, some trick shots, some banter between the players, some road stories, make it a fun, entertaining show to keep that momentum going. But nobody did, so it kind of fizzled out.
I know Keith pretty well. It's funny, when I was kind of an up and coming player in the DC area, we'd play in weekly tournaments together all the time. And, I remember the first time I stepped up to play in a professional caliber tournament was Turning Stone. And at the time, Keith was living probably a half a mile from me in Washington, D.C. And I go all the way up to Turning Stone, I don't know, 128 players in the tournament. Sure enough, I draw Keith McCready first round. Well, Turning Stone's got like the arena set up, it's beautiful. And sure enough, I start the match with Keith. There's not too many people watching, and I'm winning 6-1. I'm playing perfect, I'm playing great. And all of a sudden, people find out Keith McCready's losing to some guy they don't know. And now I got 200 people around the table watching. And I think the difference was that's what Keith needed. When he saw those people gathered around, he had his fans there. Man, he just started playing perfect. I think I had a couple chances from there, but I ended up losing like 11-7 or something like that. But he was a real momentum player. When he got in gear, he was tough to beat. So yeah, he broke my heart.
Yeah, he had a really high gear, and I got a lot of respect for him and what he's done. It's those crowds will get you nervous. Like playing pool, I kind of got into it to where I never was really that nervous, even playing on ESPN, even though the live matches were a lot more pressure than the tape matches. like I played the Battle of the Sexes. When I won the World Championships in 96 on ESPN, Vivian Villarreal won the Women's World Championships at the same time. And they promoted a big Battle of the Sexes. So I played Vivian, 60,000 for first, 40,000 for second. So it was pretty significant money. I mean, especially looking at what they're playing for now. This was, 24 years ago. So I was playing incredibly good and ended up winning that match. But they told me 2.8 million people were watching. Wow. And I just was so confident. And the way that I play when I really click in is kind of pressure proof too. I play a different type of game than a lot of other people. Like that's why I look forward to really showing people what I'm doing, because I've been doing it lately in person with lessons. And I've given a lot of lessons the last 3 years because I just, I'm the type that I want to be the best at it. And I really just set out to be the best instructor in the world. And that doesn't mean I get a trophy for it. That just means inside that I feel that I am. Yeah. And then I wanted to get to that point and then share it worldwide, because, it's kind of rehearsing it at the same time and learning it so that I can explain it better. But I'm pretty close to that right now. And like I tell people, and after I show them, even a 3-hour lesson, I'm going to show people how it all connects together. Give them baselines and referential indexes for the left side of the body, where the left foot goes, the right side of the body, where the right foot goes, how the body position controls where the hand positions naturally go, how to preset your body in a position that you can be a pool playing machine. Because my position is, we were not made to play pool. We were not made to play golf. We were not made to play tennis. But as far as pool, there is a position that I can put my body in that makes it look like my body was made to play pool. So what I do is teach people how to get in that position first. That's a lot easier said than done, because what most people are programmed to do is they see the shot, they go up to the shot, they position their body accordingly, and they try to make that shot however they aim, however they align, however they do it. That's their mindset. That's not what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. It's almost the opposite of that. The first thing I do is put my body in the pool playing machine position. Then I'll move over and get my eyes in position. It's like building a building. You want to build the foundation before the top floor. Well, the feet are the foundation and the head and eyes are the top floor. So most people get their top floor in position first and then get their feet. I'm getting my feet and body in position where all I've got to do is make a step, instigate the downward motion with my hips, and I can go down on the ball the same time, day in, day out, and so can anybody else, unless there's, there's some exceptions to that. And I do know some exceptions on how to tweak that a little bit. But for the most part, you put yourself in the pool playing machine, and then you go to the table and, execute the shot, and everything connects as one. I don't look at it like I'm hitting one sphere into another sphere to hit this pocket, target over here. That's separate. What I do is I look at the balls like they're two-dimensional, where I can see sections of them, or my mind can. And then I align to every shot the same, either center to center or center to edge. And then after that, I can show you a variety of ways where you can aim, because that's a personal thing. As a matter of fact, most champion players don't say they use an aiming system. They say it's instinct. Well, instinct is a system. If you're going to do something consistently, they're just not aware of it. So it's subconscious. And what I've done is put a lot of time and effort into figuring out, when I got in that zone, when I was playing my absolute best, what was I doing exactly? Mm-hmm. And when you're doing that, it's hard to go back and forth, because when you're in the teaching mode, it's hard to play at a high level. And when you're playing at a high level, if you start teaching, it's liable to mess you up, because you become conscious of subconscious activities that you were doing before, and it messes you up. Like you're walking down the steps and somebody says, "Are you breathing in or out on your right foot?" Boom. I mean, if you really think about it, you're not going to be able to walk down those steps very well.
Yeah, I
And it's
never
the same
thought
thing with
about it that
pool.
way. That's a great point
Yeah.
because,
So
like, if you take the time to stop and think about, like, you're playing great, you're in dead punch. Well, most time when you're doing that, you're not really thinking a lot. You're just in the zone, like we talked about before. And it's almost like from a macro level, if you're trying to be the best instructor you can be while you're trying to be the best player you can be, well, that's probably not going to work because you're going to start like critiquing yourself and you're not going to be in the zone. I like that.
well, it works when they finally come together because I mean you know, I've had to really figure out what I'm doing. So now, as a test, when I'm giving lessons and stuff, I set up really hard shots and put pressure on myself. Like I froze last night. I was giving a lesson. I froze the cue ball on the end rail at the center diamond. I put the other one on the foot spot, and then I told him about this game called Target Pool that Kim Davenport had invented. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so there was beginner, intermediate, advanced shots, and then they put down like the equivalent to like a dartboard, except it was square, and you try to get to the center, which was like the most points, 20 points, 50 points, whatever it was. And as you came out, you got less points. If you didn't hit the board, you didn't get any points, and if you didn't make the shot, you didn't get any points. So that was a totally skill game. And so I set that shot up for this guy and told him where the target would be, and made the shot without warming up really, and came just like 3 inches from where I pointed that the cue ball was going to go. And I told him, as far as playing the game of pool, I've never claimed to like be the best. I've had moments where I think I could, but that doesn't mean that I did everything better than somebody like Efren Reyes. Like Efren Reyes does everything really good, and I had a few things that I didn't think would ever be as good as Efren, but he did play in those target pool tournaments. We had two of them. One was in Las Vegas, 3,500 for first, no entry fee. So all the players that were there, and there was an all-star lineup, got into this tournament, and I ended up winning it. So then he had a tournament in Gloucester, Massachusetts, another big tournament with all the pros there. He had another target pool tournament with $2,500 first place. Everybody gets in it, no entry fee, and I won that one too.
Did you really?
So, I'm not, this isn't bragging or anything. I'm just saying that the systems that I teach and what I'm showing is why I was able to do that. Because some of the mechanical stuff that I do, those other players are doing it naturally. So when you get them in a game situation like that isn't one like a regular game of pool, they're a little out of their element. So setting up ideally to make all these hard shots and get the cue ball where they want it, I think that was a big advantage for me because I had really done a lot of work even at that time to understand why I was getting the results so that I could do it at a moment's notice or before I was even warmed up. So,
Yeah, so I was going to ask you about this a little bit later, but since you brought up your training, your clinics, that kind of stuff, I wanted to give you an opportunity now to let the audience know how they can get in touch with you to schedule a seminar, a clinic, lessons, that type of thing.
yeah. Facebook's good. If you're not a friend of mine on Facebook, sometimes I don't get the messages go into like a different file and I'm not notified of it. So sometimes that happens where I'll have 3 or 4 and I didn't get back to them because I didn't know it was there, the message. But CJ Wiley at cjwiley.com is, or excuse me, CJ Wiley at gmail.com. I guess it is. God, I haven't emailed myself in a while. CJ Wiley at cjwiley.com.
Okay.
That's the Gmail, right? It doesn't have to have a Gmail on it, does it?
I don't know, but what we'll do afterwards is we'll get the email correct and I'll put it up on the screen.
Yeah.
That way people.
God, I'm used to writing it. But anyway, CJ Wiley at cjwiley.com. And on Facebook, I've got a couple other websites. Masteringpocketbilliards.com is the one that goes to all of my instructional videos right now. It is just more of a private membership thing. I have about 12 hours of different types of videos on there right now. including some of my road stories. I don't have all of them on there, but at some point I'll probably download all of those road stories. But it's more instructional, and it has the documentary with Earl Strickland where he tells how he trained to run those 10 racks or 11 racks in a row for the $1 million. He trained to do that. He came there to do that. He told his wife on the way over, I'm going to do it. I'm going to run those 10 racks for $1 million. And he did it. So in his own words, and she verified it, he was going on a mission to accomplish that and did it. That's pretty extraordinary, if you ask me.
Yeah, I'll say. Shifting back to your career, what's your highest high and your lowest low throughout your pool career?
I mean, I think the highest high was winning that ESPN World Open Championship and then the Battle of the Sexes. I mean, at that point right there, I don't think it could have got much better for accomplishment and not something that I did in a back room pool hall, as far as gambling, but something that everybody could see. And I got to the finals of that ESPN tournament 3 years in a row. So I won it in 96. I was runner up in 97. I was runner up in 98. So they told me I had over 600 international hours of TV time worldwide. So I couldn't walk through an airport without, several people knowing who I am. And I don't think that's the case anymore just because of the lack of the ESPN. But that was the highest high. I think the lowest low was I was in Hutchinson, Kansas, and before the tournament, I played this guy Jeremiah Johnson, and I was impressed how good he played. I was only like 19 years old, and he played really well. And we went back because I was playing really well, and I couldn't beat him. So I ended up at that tournament getting into match after match after match and playing in the tournaments. And I stayed up for 4 straight days with going back to the hotel to take a shower once in a while, but I never got in my bed. So it got down to where I ended up getting, I think I got 5th in the tournament, but I started betting on Jeremiah, and Jeremiah ended up winning the tournament. So anyway, I stayed up all those days, and I was pushing myself way too hard back then, and my weight was down. I was like 145 pounds or something. And I went down to Dallas. And when I got there, I had no money. I had just a little bit of gas in my car, and I made it to this pool room, 24-hour pool room called Rusty's on Northwest Highway in Dallas. And I went in there, and I'm sitting at the bar, and I got no money. I got no gas. I got no hope. I mean, I'm like, I don't know anybody. I'm too shy and embarrassed to ask somebody for money. I'm sitting there thinking, oh, what in the world have I got myself into? And just 5 or 10 minutes later, I heard the door open. I turned around, and it was Jeremiah Johnson and his friend Larry that had just coincidentally come down there and decided to go in that pool room. And they ended up, I looked at them. I thought I'd seen an angel or something. I mean, it was like, oh my God, there's hope. I can at least eat. Jeez. So they backed me for $500. I beat this guy, and then he stalled me around and played another one, and I lost it back. So now I'm back to not having anything. The next day we go to Paris, Texas, which is northeast of Dallas, about an hour and a half or so. And I ended up getting in a game with a bar owner and beat him out of like almost 7,000, but he didn't have any money. It was all on a check. It was all what we call on the wire.
Yeah.
And people said he was good for it. And we were you got to take a chance, even if they don't pay. So he gives us the check. And of course, in my state of mind, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure this is going to be good. We're going to go down. He's going to stop payment on it, blah, blah, blah. And so we went down to the bank. They let me go in. I went in there. I don't even think they asked me for ID back then. I think they saw that check and just cashed it like it was gold.
Really?
And I got that money and went out. I mean, it was like a big life-changing experience. And then that led to we ended up driving back to Las Cruces, New Mexico. Larry and I, Jeremiah flew back. We won another 3,800 going back. And then I met a group of people out there that became my lifelong friends. And we went through it. It's led to all kinds of different things in my life. starting from that hopeless situation of having no money, no gas, no nothing, sitting in that pool room in Dallas.
Yeah.
So you never know, what life will bring. I just,
CJ, let's say the internet wasn't around now. Who would you pick for maybe like 3 or 4 players to go on the road with and get the cash?
I think Corey Deuel would be one, and probably Rob Saez. He plays really good and is a good gambler. If he was playing, he's not playing a lot. Shannon Dalton, he's another one that is just really good on the road and gambling and plays a lot of games at a high level. I know he's not playing much anymore, but those are a few that I would choose. Like you said, with modern technology now, they take a picture of you and put you on a forum or something, and it's impossible to hide like I used to be able to. I was playing in North Carolina one time, and I'm playing this guy, and he says, I ran out the rack, and he's like, "You're that CJ, aren't you?" And I was like, "CJ? What's that?" And so anyway, it was kind of uncomfortable. I went over to my partners. I was going by him. He goes, "Deny, deny, deny." So for the rest of the match, he kept saying, "You're that CJ." And I kept saying, "I don't know who you're talking about. And my name's Mike." But in this day and age, he would show me my picture and say, "No, you are that CJ Wiley character." Omaha John one time was down in Tupelo, Mississippi, and 3 guys were arguing about who the best young player in the country was. And the first one said, "I think it's a kid named Mike from Indiana. He came through my town and he gave me the 7-ball and beat me." And this other guy's like, no, I think it's this kid from Tennessee named Butch. He came through my town and gave me the handicap of the 6-ball, which is more, and beat me." And the other guy's, no, there's this kid, CJ, in Missouri, and he's the best one. He came through my town, gave me the 5-ball and beat me. At that time, Omaha John had to get up from the table and go to the bathroom because he started laughing because I'd used all 3 of those names when I was with him. So they knew they were all arguing over who the best player and the young player was in the country, and they were all me. So I told John, I said, "Well, I guess I won." I guess.
Yeah.
So, we could do that back in those days, but not now.
Yeah, you're right. Now it's impossible with the internet. And not only that, even, 5, 6 years ago out in the state of Arizona, the entire state, every player in the state was rated. They had a handicap. They had their own system out here. And now they've switched over to the Fargo rate, but every single player, you couldn't sneak up on anybody. Everybody knew who you were. And if they didn't know who you were, you had to kick up your driver's license and they'd find out who you were and they'd assign a rating to you before you could play anything,
Yeah, they've got it organized now. The knocking, we used to call it, you got knocked. Now it's like an organized knocking system that they have with the Fargo rating.
Yeah. Who else would be a great person for me to interview? Like somebody that if I interviewed them on this show, you might even tune in and kind of check it out.
Of the top players now?
Yeah. Maybe a character.
I don't know. I mean, I think Rob Saez is pretty funny and a good personality. I levitate more towards the gamblers than the tournament players as far as being entertaining and having the stories. Of course, Earl Strickland is a classic. He and I get along, pretty well, especially away from the pool table. We play a lot of golf and tennis together and stuff like that. So he's certainly an interesting character. And he used to go on the road and gamble like I did. But when he quit, he never looked back. I don't think he's done much gambling in the past 20 years.
Maybe you could help me get in touch with him. I'd love to, I've had a lot of people request him, and he's rather elusive. He's tough to find. I found you online, and you were so easy to work with. So, if you could help me get in touch with him, I'd love that. I think people would really appreciate that.
Yeah, I played him a challenge match last year. I haven't talked to him since then, so I don't know where he's at.
So, is there anything more you want to accomplish in the game of pool? Any other goals?
Well, I mean, I'd like to bring it into the public eye. Like I said earlier, I created a game that brings out all the best aspects of pool. And really, through an honest evaluation of the game, I would say that we're only showing about 20% of its potential. And like I said, what people like to see is the shot making, the banter between the two players, the battle for the first shot, and then those shots that have they're two-way shots, have offensive and defensive components, because that's where the real knowledge is in pool, is shooting a shot that might be the odds might be against you to make it, but you have a pretty good odds of missing it on a certain side of the pocket and not leaving your opponent a shot. So that's where it really gets interesting, and the commentators have something to talk about. And if I brought that game into the public eye and did it right, it would really make an impact, because it'd go from having 20% of its potential up to probably 90%. And we could, push it towards that 100% just through, how well the players were bantering among each other. And you just have to look at the game also as the show qualities and the entertainment qualities, the excitement qualities, and being able to put it on a number. Like if I'm channel surfing and I go to a football game, even if I'm not a big fan, if it's fourth down and there's 7 seconds left, and they put the situation on a number, I'm going to understand what that number is, and so is everybody else that has any relationship to football, and I'm going to know that I want to watch that play because it's exciting. And we can't do that in pool right now. You can't really put it on a number. And I mean, you can put the score down, but what I'm talking about is going into the particular shot and what is the number of that shot and what does it mean if they make it or don't make it. And if that isn't done, I don't really see much future in just playing the same games over and over. They say that you can't solve the problems that you create with the same thinking that you use to create it. So most people have just been thinking the same way and doing the same type of stuff for years and years and years, and it hasn't changed. So they have to change their thinking and certainly make some positive alterations to the game, like I did, to bring out those great aspects and make it exciting for people that don't normally watch pool.
CJ, you've given me so much of your time today and so much, I think, really good advice in this episode, as well as just some great stories and finding out more about you and getting to know you. And I really appreciate that. I wanted to know if you had any final words for the players out there, the fans, people who might be watching, anything you want to kind of leave them with.
Well, the game is the teacher. I mean, I like to, connect things through like bridges, if you will, or through analogies. And the game of pool, if you look at it like that, teaches a lot more than just making those little balls in those big pockets. It shows you, a lot about yourself and, controlling emotions and risk reward scenarios and dealing with pressure, because no matter what we do in life, some of the most rewarding things that can happen involve some level of pressure. And generally, the more pressure, the more confidence that you will get out of the situation. Because they say confidence is a real thing. You can develop units of confidence, but it's mirrored by your ability to show courage. So if you show courage and get up there and play somebody you don't think you can beat or haven't been able to in the past, but you just make yourself get up there, some really good things might happen and some bad things might happen. But I'll tell you one thing for sure is if you get through it and you hold your composure and you look at it as a learning experience, you will get a unit of confidence from that courage that you showed. And I think across the board, that's what we all should be seeking to do is push ourselves that next level, show the courage to do it, and the reward will always be a unit of confidence.
Well, CJ, that's some great advice to close with. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best in the future. And maybe we can come back for another episode, maybe a year down the road or so, and see how you're progressing with your idea.
Sure, Joe. I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity.